Good morning, and hope you all are doing well. House Republicans and the American people trust President Trump. His policies, which put Americans first, will deliver the strongest economy in the world. For far too long, American workers have been taken advantage of. And President Trump has made it clear, we will no longer put American workers at an unfair advantage. Imagine starting a football game 2 touchdowns behind. Or imagine being Houston and starting with a 25-point lead. Perhaps they would have won the game last night, right? For the past 50 years, that position, the United States has actually been in. That is the position that the United States of America has been in for the past 20 plus years. Think about it. Across 132 countries and more than 600,000 products, U.S. exporters face higher tariffs 2/3 of the time. That is the definition of unfair and completely unacceptable. Remember, the goal is to level the playing field, and the president is already bringing our trade partners to the table. Look at Vietnam and Japan. Already, businesses have started adjusting and restructuring. They are investing in America. The president has secured $5 trillion of investments in the United States in his first 2 months, including my home state of Michigan, where Apple announced their intentions to launch a state-of-the-art manufacturing academy. This is proof that president's negotiations work. And high-paying, skilled manufacturing jobs will follow these investments to America. Just look at the job numbers from last week. Payrolls increased by 228,000. Payroll increased by 228,000 jobs in March. That was 88,000 more than forecasters had expected. And according to the private sector employment report, in March, 21,000 new jobs were added in manufacturing. Something unimaginable a year ago. Look, the reality is Biden left behind a broken economy, and the status quo won't fix it. No one should fault President Trump for trying unconventional ways to get us out of this mess, because that's what it's going to take. House Republicans know that President Trump's long-term strategy will pay off. Now, changing gears and moving on to this week in our work to advance President Trump's agenda, Americans expect us to do our job. This week, we need to pass the SAVE Act and secure our elections. Stop rogue judges from stalling President Trump and the American people's agenda. Reverse Biden's disastrous policies and advance our one big, beautiful bill, which will help get our economy back on track again and give our markets some certainty. And we said this from the get-go. There may be growing pains, but House Republicans are unified behind our common goal to deliver on the mandate that the American people gave us. And now I will turn it over to the man who will help do that, which is our whip, Tom Emmer.
How about that, Alex Ovechkin? Oh, wrong group. Sorry. President Trump's multi-pronged economic strategy to renew the American dream demands congressional action. The stakes are high. House Republicans must work in tandem with President Trump to deliver the agenda that 77 million Americans sent here to enact. This includes renewing President Trump's successful tax policy in order to give Americans the financial certainty and prosperity they deserve. In addition to the administration's historic actions to secure nearly $5 trillion in investments and trade commitments and a massive deregulation campaign. House Republicans must also ensure the continuance of the 2017 Trump tax cuts through reconciliation. We're excited, by the way, to host U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent later today for a roundtable to address the importance and urgency of getting this done. Remember, the Senate version of the budget resolution does not prevent the House from achieving the goals we set for ourselves earlier in this process. In fact, it doesn't mean a thing to the House. We will continue to advocate for the final reconciliation bill to include historic spending reductions while protecting essential programs. But we must act now to bring the process to moving the America First agenda on track. The American people are hungry for economic prosperity. They were denied for 4 long years under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Together, the Republican trifecta can deliver that prosperity and return hope of financial freedom to every American. The work ahead will not be easy, but we will get it done. Failure in Congress could mean failing President Trump and the American people, and that is not an option. With that, I turn it over to our leader, Mr. Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. This is a really important week, not just in the House, but for the ability for Congress to join with President Trump and deliver on that agenda that we all ran on. We all know what President Trump said at his rallies, talking about getting America back on track, securing the border, locking in tax rates, no tax on tips, producing more energy in America, getting rules and regulations under control. All of those things are in this one big, beautiful bill that we have been focused on for more than a year in the House. But President Trump's not the only one that ran on all of those objectives. We did too. House Republicans ran on those same things. We need to follow through now and get the job done. And nobody said it would be easy. It wasn't easy to get the budget passed a few weeks ago. Some, in fact, not necessarily saying anybody in this room, but some said the bill might not pass. And yet we passed the bill without a vote to spare because we know our margins are narrow. But our commitment is firm on getting this done because, as the whip said, failure is not an option. And so today is no different where we are than where we were the same week that we passed the budget over a month ago. There are members that have questions, but it's critical that we advance this agenda, that we don't delay, because passing the budget doesn't end the process, it starts the reconciliation process. We can't even begin reconciliation until the budget's done. And if some people think we can just wait for the Senate to catch up to the House, we could talk all day about the fact that they're not against what we're trying to do, they just haven't gotten to that point. The months of meetings and negotiations that we've had in the House, the back and forth with CBO that we have done, which, by the way, has yielded some really big improvements in the CBO scoring. Some of it is just coming in from the initial scoring from the CBO because we disagreed with their numbers, but we didn't just yell and scream. We went back to them, and we're now getting CBO to give us better numbers on the savings that we'll achieve from things like work requirements and some of the other reforms that we all agree upon. But we cannot delay the country. Can't afford for us to delay a month or longer to wait on the Senate getting where we are. We've got to continue to move forward, and the bill that we have before us allows us to do that. It allows us to achieve all the savings that we laid out in the House bill. It allows us to achieve all the border security we laid out. It allows us to achieve all the things we want to do to stabilize the tax code. But think about this, because people are watching the markets, and that's understandable. There is trillions of dollars on the sidelines, and I've heard this from so many people in different industries all across the country, trillions of dollars that are not looking at tariffs, that are looking to see what Congress does on the tax code. And they're not going to make those investments until they see a stabilized tax code that doesn't expire at the end of this year, but in fact gets renewed for 10 years, ideally permanently, to lock in tax rates so you don't have a massive tax hike on the country. And we need to remove that uncertainty. The president can't do that. Congress needs to do that, House and Senate combined. So the president is all in. You saw his True Social post yesterday. We're all in as well. And yes, members will continue to raise questions. We're going to continue working through that process, but we can't stop the advancement of our agenda. Democrats don't want this economy to turn around, but we do. We ran on it. We're committed to it. And our leader in that effort is our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Rarely do I get to raise the podium level, but I'm going to take great pleasure in doing that. Thank you.
Whatever I
Yes,
can do to
yes,
help.
that's right. It was too low for me. Everybody note that for the record. Hey, good morning. Glad to have you all here. It's a very, very busy week on Capitol Hill, as you know. We had a great boost of excitement in the Republican conference meeting this morning. We welcomed our 2 new members from Florida. We were delighted to win those seats handily, and so Congressman Jimmy Petronas and Randy Fine join us. We got them on their committees, and they are joining the team. That team is going to be very busy, as you heard, the recount of sort of what we're going to be working on over the next few days here. Between now and Thursday, the House is going to pass some really important legislation. We'll ensure that only American citizens decide American elections, as you heard. We're going to prevent activist judges from issuing these unconstitutional nationwide injunctions and legislating from the bench, which has become a real problem. And we're going to roll back 2 burdensome Biden-era CFPB rules. This is all common sense issues, and they're things that make sense to the American people. Let me talk about the SAVE Act very briefly. You've heard some about this already. Polling shows that nearly 90% of the American people believe that proof of citizenship should be required to vote. There are few issues in American politics that enjoy that level of bipartisan support. This should pass with a massive bipartisan margin, but watch, it won't. The Democrats are contorting themselves into a pretzel trying to justify some sort of vote against this. Last year they argued we were too close to a federal election to make voting changes. And then they said that non-citizens don't actually vote. And then they said the SAVE Act will somehow result in voter suppression. All that was total nonsense. Now they're claiming that the SAVE Act disenfranchises married women who change their last names. I mean, it's absurd. What they're trying to do is protect the ability of non-citizens to participate in our elections. Plain and simple, that's what this is about. And we know it's a crisis because the last administration, as we all well know, opened the border wide, and we had, by some counts, 20 million illegal aliens come into the country, right? There's no mechanism in federal law in current law that requires states to prove citizenship. So even though it is currently against the law, only U.S. citizens should decide U.S. elections, there's no way to make sure that's actually happening. So the SAVE Act is so critically important. It follows common sense, and the American people are with us. The Democrats, I predict, will not be, and they're going to have to answer for that. Let me talk about reconciliation. You heard a lot about this. This is the mechanism that we have to advance the Trump agenda in a big way and deliver results to the American people, all those who voted for these big changes. And this week, we're working in the House to advance the Senate's amendment to our budget resolution, as you know. Just to recount this, we've been working on this for over a year. We started this process well before most of the people in this room agreed with us that we would have this moment of unified government where we would have Republican majorities in the House and Senate, and of course the White House as well. And so we started that process. I want to make 4 important points about the Senate's amendment to our House resolution. Number 1, the budget resolution is not the law. Okay, all this does is it allows us to continue the process, begin drafting the actual legislation that really counts, and that's the one big beautiful bill. Number 2, the Senate amendment makes no changes to the reconciliation instructions that we put into the budget resolution. So our objectives remain intact. Number 3, any final reconciliation bill has to include historic spending reductions that we included in our resolution, while also safeguarding essential programs. And you've heard a commitment from us over and over that will happen, and the president has said it himself over and over as well. The 4th point is that reconciliation will be a collaborative process between the House and Senate. You're going to see the Republican Party in both chambers working together as one team. I know that's a rare occasion and people don't really know what that looks like, but we're actually going to do it this time. The House is not going to participate in an us versus them charade. We won't do it. To secure and accomplish our mission, we got to be working together and rowing in the same direction. And I'm fiercely committed to doing that, and so is Leader Thune and our members on both sides. passing this amendment just allows us to get off the sidelines and get on the field and start this game. It's the kickoff, so to speak, with one of my football metaphors, and we got to get this done. Republicans have an historic, once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver relief to hardworking families and set our country back on the path of prosperity. The American people desperately need us to take this action, and we will. As we wrote in a letter to our conference this weekend, time really is of the essence. There's a lot of pressure points that are outside of our control but are forcing this action. We're months away from the X-date on the debt limit. The border security resources are being diminished. Markets are unsettled, and the largest tax increase in American history is set to hit families and businesses at the end of this year if we do not act. And for all those reasons, we have no luxury of complacency, and we really don't have time to dither on this thing. So we'll be moving that forward, and you'll see that action this week. Okay, with that, I'll take a few questions. What we got?
Question on two tax proposals that are being talked about in the White House. Just want to get your official comment on them. One, a 40% millionaire surtax is still being talked about over there. What's your opinion on that? And the second is an export tax credit to help those who are facing, such as in China, retaliatory tariffs. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on specific proposals because there's hundreds of them on the table right now, and I don't want to put my thumb on the scale. I mean, generally, we're trying to reduce taxes around here, so that's a general principle. But we'll have to see. We've got a lot of great ideas. The formulation that we'll try to work on and complete over the coming weeks, the next several weeks, few weeks, I hope, maybe several weeks, is to get to the point of consensus on all of those different factors and finding the level that will not only, as I said, reduce spending and change the debt trajectory for the country, but also protect our essential programs. And I'm convinced that we can do both. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned resources for border security. In yesterday's Supreme Court ruling on the Alien Enemies Act, the justices unanimously reaffirmed migrants' rights to a hearing before removal. Should Congress allocate additional funding to the judiciary to address a possible backlog of cases and to ensure potential deportees get due process?
Well, due process is an important principle, and of course we support that, and we have to give Customs and Border Patrol agents and everybody involved in the process the resources they need to get the job done. It does require additional resources because we have so many people to process because the last administration opened the border wide, and it's a serious crisis. And I think that was top of mind for most of the people who voted in this last election. We don't know what the specifics are yet. We do applaud the ruling for the Supreme Court. The most important principle that came out of that is that they said that you can't go venue shopping for this. They're going to return that back to the court in Texas where it belonged, and I think that's a very important step. The reason that we're passing the No Rogue Rulings Act this week is because we're concerned about this, what really is a constitutional crisis. And you've heard the stats, but I think it's 62% or 64% of all the injunctions, national injunctions that are issued against a president or against Donald J. Trump over the last several decades, and 90% of those or something were issued by judges that were appointed to the federal bench by Democrat presidents. I mean, it just looks on its face to be a serious issue, and Congress has to address it. And so Congressman Darrell Iss's bill is a really good measure to take some control in that area, and we're looking forward to that development. Yeah, front rep.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask you, it's been 3 months since the wildfires in Los Angeles. I know Governor Newsom sent your office a letter asking for additional funding. Have you been able to review that letter? Can you tell us a little bit about where those discussions stand on that funding?
Well, look, the California wildfires is something that it's a request for supplemental emergency spending, and all of this is kind of wrapped together in all of the deliberations we're making right now. Reconciliation is the most immediate and urgent thing on our plate, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I'll tell you that there's some internal discussion about it, but it hasn't advanced yet, but stay tuned on that. So,
Last question.
second row, yes, sir.
HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy has now put in a call to the CDC to stop putting fluoride in drinking water. I want to get your thoughts on that, as health advisors have constantly said that they advise against that.
Yeah, it's an interesting issue. I don't profess to be an expert in chemistry. I do constitutional law primarily, but I'll tell you that I think it deserves, from what I've read and from what I understand, it deserves real evaluation. There's a concern that it may be having a negative effect on the health of children, and obviously we have an obligation at the federal government level to look into that. So I'm as interested as you are. I don't have the answers, but I think it's one that the question has been begged and it needs to be addressed. So, thank you. Thank you.